Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where I talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of In the Dark. Another great episode. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So immediately picking up where the last episode left off, we actually find out that Leslie, I figured her partnership with Paula was not done. I figured Paula was going to come cashing in those chips. But it turns out Leslie's been casting in those chips for the past week because Paula's secretly been staying at her place. That's so interesting. You've been dealing with that the entire time you're also dealing with Murphy's trial. I think that speaks volumes of like, right, you just 100% focused on that. It's like one thing at a time. You can help out with Murphy's situation and then you can worry about the Paula thing. No wonder you broke down even more so 2 episodes ago, like during part 2 of the trial, because it was one more, it was just like the straw that broke the camel's back. There was already so much you were dealing with, and then that revelation on top of it just finally broke you. It just everything you were dealing with at that time, so it's understandable. So, but yeah, Paula's been staying with her for the past week. And so, obviously, Leslie's like, Murphy, get the hell out of here. What are you trying to do? Like, oh, now you're mixed up with Paula. It's like, no, get away. You've already ruined my life once. I'm not going to let you ruin even more of it. And then Leslie, being as smart as she is, she is a really good lawyer, immediately starts piecing things together. It's like, wait, you're here. There's no ankle monitor. Oh, you made a deal. You're going to turn Paula in to save yourself, huh? It's like, well, of course you are. Of course, like, no matter what, even when I left you high and dry, you still managed to find your way around this. It's like, no, you're not about to get me killed. Go scat. But then Paula is acting super paranoid because she can't get in contact with the boss, which I'm like, oh, I didn't realize Paula was just middle management. I thought she was I think she oversees a lot of she's one of the top people who oversees the operations. I didn't realize that she was a middle player. I thought she was the boss, and to find out, oh no, because I thought she was the Nia Bailey of this organization. She's not. We don't know who it is. I'm thinking we're dealing with a dirty cop. That's just with the way the episode played out, because I think it's going to be a twist when we find out who the boss actually is, but I can only assume it's someone with some cop connections, maybe, because things played out that way. Like, not unless it's like the new guy that's working with Gene and them, not unless he's the boss, but I don't think he is. But I feel like it's got to be a character we know, right? I don't know. Maybe it's someone we don't know. Because I'm like, who else? I'm curious, like, who could it be? It'd have to probably end up being a character we don't know. Or it might be a character we've known from earlier seasons or something like that. Because part of me wonders, like, I'm spitballing stuff here and there. I'm like, I was about to go down that route, but I'm about to say, like, it's stupid and wild to say, but I'm like, there's no way it's Jess. Jess wants nothing to do with all of this. Because I was about to say, if Jess was going to be in the show, that flashback scene, they would have brought her back for that. I mean, to be fair, they're in the background, out of focus, so it doesn't matter, but I'm almost like, nah, like, that should have been, yeah, that's why I'm like, I don't know. I was about to say, like, what if, because the conversation was like, oh, who could Jess have been texting at the end of season 3? And I'm like, kind of blanking on her girlfriend's name that was who was Sam's girlfriend at the time. I'm blanking on her name. Like, the theories were like it was her, but I'm like, what if whoever she was texting is actually connected? And I don't know, man. I don't know. I feel like the twist would be it has to be someone we've met or seen before. I just don't know. I don't know. It might just be a new character all around, but either way, putting all that aside, but my point was initially going down that route. Paula's paranoid as hell because she can't get in contact with the boss, and Trevor hasn't shown up, which she doesn't know that Trevor's dead, which I guess no one knows Trevor's dead yet. I guess well, to be fair, you'd have to go to that building because it seems like that was potentially an abandoned building, so God knows how long it's actually been since Trevor died. It's probably only been like a couple hours, so someone probably hasn't really noticed that he's gone missing yet. Well, enough that Paula's noticed, but to be fair, Paula's paranoid, plus he's her food delivery guy, and it's like him not showing up because apparently he's the only person in the organization that she kind of trusted right at that time. But like, she was paranoid that like the boss was she felt like, oh, they're icing me out. She's like, I broke out of prison just for them to end up killing me. It's like, no, I ain't going out like that. So Leslie can see how unhinged she is, so she's like, I don't think she went down there to talk to Darnell and Murphy specifically, but I think for her it was just like, oh, this lady, like, I thought she was unhinged before. She's on a whole other level now. I do not want to be around her. I just need space away from her. Question is, like, was she going to like full-blown leave? Because eventually Paula would track you down and probably killed you too, so she probably just needed some time to herself. Darnell and Murphy are there waiting. It's like, okay, we need your help. Like, you help us take down Paula. Like, we take down the boss, we take down the whole operation, and you get Paula out of your life. But it's like, yeah, but I'm going to be on the hook for helping break her out. I was like, well, you could cut a deal. It's like, well, she's like, first and foremost, I'm not going to trust the cops because they can lie. I don't, as a lawyer, she knows first and foremost, get that in writing first. And also, like, right, Murphy's a big liar too. So I'm like, I'm definitely not going to be on board with this. But then it's like, yeah, and then Trevor comes up and they both kind of look at each other. It's like, what's going on? It's like, yeah, Trevor's kind of dead. It's like, she's looking like, wait, did you? They're like, no, we didn't kill Trevor. It was an accident. Because even Murphy, because he chewed at Murphy out for telling Leslie, but she's like, I didn't. Leslie just kind of figured it out. And now Darnell spills everything. She's like, really? He's like, what would you want me to say? I legitimately, despite the circumstances that they are in, I do love, like, the comedy bits, the levity of this show, because it really adds to it. Like, the Darnell and Murphy, like, anytime, like, it's such an odd pairing. Like, I mean, since the beginning of the show, they've always been, like, this interesting, complicated pair. I mean, I guess it's, like, why her and Tyson got along so well. And it's just like, yeah, I'm sure, I mean, I don't know if Murphy's ever really thought about it, but I'm sure, like, probably hanging around, Darnell always made her feel closer to Tyson. It felt like, right, like, oh, like, here's some family, and, because it's like, right, this is the only other person, this is another person, not the only, there's another person in the world who loved Tyson as much as I did. Obviously, he was mixed up in everything that he was mixed up in, but Darnell, maybe on some level, it's almost like having Tyson back, so maybe there's some small part, because I don't think she's ever really talked about that, but I wonder if there's some small part of her that kind of feels like that sometimes. It would be nice if, like, there was, like, a scene, because we got it earlier this season of Darnell seeing Tyson and talking about his mom, but I think it'd be really neat if at one point Darnell has that same moment with Tyson, but it's about Murphy, and it's like, it'd be this nice, sweet moment, or if he even talks about that with Murphy, like, hey, actually sees Tyson from time to time, and she's like, really? It's like, yeah, that must be nice. It's like, is he happy? And he's like, yeah, he's happy. Like, I think that would be kind of a nice moment for them to have, but them kind of bonding over the situation that they're in, because initially Leslie was supposed to go upstairs, get Paula's phone, but Paula keeps it with her, like, all the time, so Leslie tried to sneak in and get it, but it was in the bedroom right beside her, and it's like, I couldn't do it. It's like, yeah, maybe if you tiptoe and if you didn't lurch or something like that. She's like, I don't lurch. She's like, yeah, you walk heavily. She's like, no, I don't. It's like, all right, stop. It's like, we got to find something else to do. It's like, well, I guess we could, it's like, we can, like, they were talking about drugging her, or, it's like, oh, what, I guess it's like, we have to pull it out of her cold, dead hands. It's like, well, that's an option. She's like, we're not going to kill her. Like, I'm not a murderer. And he's like, I wasn't saying murder, you psycho. Just a death-like state. Darnell's like, so we drug her? It's like, that's not a bad idea. And I'm like, the fact is, Darnell's like, all like, no, actually, yeah, him and Murphy after the last episode, they had their epiphany. He's like, yo, hey, you're actually good at this. No, you're good at this. Like, they're bouncing off of each other's ideas. And she's like, how was that actually a good idea? And it's like, Darnell's like, do you have a better idea? So, where we're going to get some drugs or whatever, and, like, where we're going to get roofies from, and they kind of look at Darnell, he's like, why, I don't sell drugs, like, why would you look to me? I don't have roofies. They're like, we're looking at you like that because you're the former drug dealer. And he was like, well, Murphy, you're also a former drug dealer. She's like, good point. But it's actually Leslie who has an idea where to get some roofies from, and it's like, which also, like, I think this speaks volumes, like, Murphy was like, yeah, a guy tried to roof me once, and they were like, both of them paused, like, almost like, wait, what? Like, oh shit, like, I didn't know that. And she's like, yeah, luckily Jess, like, stopped the whole situation from happening, but I couldn't remember anything, so that gave them an idea to roofie Paula, and so she'd have blurred memory and not really remember. I think with her paranoia, her, like, passing out, she would have, like, been, like, even more paranoid and on high alert, being like, no, I can't remember anything, fuck that, like, something's wrong. So that would have definitely been an issue regardless. Yeah, Leslie brought up, like, this kid Jake. He's like, yeah, he was on this date rape charge, I got him off. And she was like, Murphy's almost like, and even Darnell's looking like, ugh. And Murphy's like, oh, so you have an issue with murder, but it's like, no, he was innocent. So they go to the bar, try to get the deal. And I love it. It's just like, but Darnell kind of struck out. He's like, what'd you expect me to do? They're like, you couldn't came up with any name and you chose the name of Jake, the guy who got busted for it in the first place. He's like, I'm sorry, I panicked. Lo and behold, who's at the fucking bar? None other than Jake. I was like, wow, that piece of shit did it. And he put it on one of his friends or something. And Leslie like felt bad. She was like, I believe that piece of shit. And she's like, for years now, he most likely continued to do that. And it's like, and then obviously like Murphy and her go back and forth about like breaking down the psychology of why someone would do that. It's like, yeah, men want to act like we're emotionals, but they're the big crybabies. It's like, yeah, the fact of the matter is he's doing that because, I guarantee like some girl broke up and Leslie's like, or his mom didn't hug him enough. Exactly. So, but it's also like, right, whatever he did, like you might have gave him the best defense because that's what you do as a lawyer. You believed him. You want to give your client the benefit of the doubt. I mean, I guess it's better than going into every situation being like, it's supposed to be innocent until proven guilty, not guilty until proven innocent. Like some people want to treat it that way sometimes. But I think Leslie wanting to give someone the benefit of doubt, not wanting to ruin their lives is one thing. But for her, it's like that bastard sat there and lied to my face, and he continued to do that. But it's like, right, you were his lawyer. Everything he did is on him being the monster he is. That does not fall back on you. Luckily, they were able to save a young lady from, because he had already drugged her too, and he was about to take her back to his car. It's like, God, could you like be a even slimier piece of shit, And so Leslie wanted to make sure not only Jake, but also the bartender also took the fall as well, because obviously that's the guy that he was buying the drugs from. So like they both needed to go down. So making sure there was enough evidence on him so that he could go down for real this time. So, so with that all said and done, I did like that Murphy and Leslie did kind of start bonding more, and just like, it's like, yeah, about the Max thing. She's like, really? Like, honestly, that's on me. I let the guy move in after knowing him for like a week. So she's like, yeah, that was kind of on me. And also talked about the fact is like, wait, you really rejected Max? And it's like, yeah. It's like, yeah, he must have, that makes sense. He came begging me afterwards of pleading. I think he even got down on one knee. And I wondered, did that make Murphy feel weird? Because obviously Max had just... probably not the time to bring up the fact is he literally just came crawling back to me so I rejected him, he went to you rejected him, he kind of comes back to me. So I'm sure Murphy's not quite sure know what to feel about that, because yes, regardless of it all, she still wants Max. Once again, that's a weird, I'd go as far as saying that's probably still a very toxic relationship, but they're attracted. You can't, the heart wants what the heart wants, no matter how bad something or someone is for us, sometimes we can't help ourselves. But it's like, yeah, Max went to her, but I was wondering, I was like, oh, is she going to tell him the truth? But it's like, no, she pushed him away yet again. And it's not till later on that Leslie's like, wow, actually, you're pushing him, you rejected him because you don't want him mixed up in this. She's like, I'm sure that's the same reason why you're not returning my brother's call. And for her, it's like, I don't want people to get hurt, especially because Max and Felix are the people she does care about like the most, and so she wouldn't want anything to happen to him. And in that moment, her playing with Pretzel, like Leslie, she didn't say it, but you could see that look on her face. She was smiling because it's like, right, she knows like, yeah, Murphy can be a bad person, but she's also seen why Max and Felix care about her so much that it's like, despite it all, like there is a loving, caring person deep underneath all that like sarcasm and meanness. Like there is a good-natured person there. She can be sweet and nice, and that's why people, despite all the bad things about her, like, I mean, if you really weighed, probably like, yeah, like the bad in Murphy kind of outweighs a lot of people's bad, but people have a laundry list of bad in them too. So it's not, Murphy's is just a lot more on display. She's sometimes a little, well, she can be deceitful, but she's also sometimes upfront about who she is too. So, well, they spike the alcohol, and Leslie gets ready to drug Paula. Paula immediately pulls a gun on her the moment she comes in play, because she's like, yo, what took you so long? Did anyone follow you? It's like, yo, Paula's out her damn mind. We've never seen her this paranoid before. I guess with this business, it's like, yeah, you gotta be a little paranoid, so... But the problem is, she immediately recognized that the seal to the drink was broken. You're like, damn it. and she wants Leslie to take a sip. I was hoping like if Leslie drunk a little bit, it'd take a while, but I don't know anything about roofies, but I guess they hit immediately because it also depends on like how many she crushed in there. It seemed like it hit hard and fast. Paula didn't drink any, and you're just like, oh God. I was like, please get to her, because luckily they've got a spare key so they can go up to Leslie's anytime they need to, but they don't want to bust in there and cause a problem. So what's going to happen? I was like, oh boy. I was like, oh, the fact is Leslie's passed out. I was like, oh God, she's in a vulnerable state, but she's not dead yet. Luckily, they had texted her earlier as Trevor, so she contacts Trevor. It's like, yo, bring a silencer. So it's like, okay, good. She's not dead yet. So Darnell shows up and is like, yo, I'm Trevor's guy. He's the one that told you I was on my way. Well, I don't have the silencer. I'll get rid of the body. I'm gonna take your phone. I'm gonna get rid of it. Uses it, set up a meet with the boss, they end up saving Leslie, and you're like, yes, win. But the problem is they drop Leslie off home, and you're like, yeah, but Paula's still an issue. Like, if this doesn't go down well, which it won't, and Paula's going to be fine, and then she's going to come after Leslie later, I'm like, that's going to be the biggest issue. But turns out, don't have to worry about that because Paula got popped. That dude, which I thought was her right-hand guy, I think that's Reggie, right? That's her right-hand guy, but it's like, nah, I guess he's like the boss's right hand. He's the fix-it dude that kind of works with everyone. I thought he was like Paula's guy. It's like, no, like he's the boss's guy. I guess he's just like, right, if I have to clean up something within the organization, the drug thing, then I'm going to do that too. So the fact is that poor Paula got capped, but you're also, I say poor Paula, I mean that sarcastically, but you're also like, Leslie's off the hook, but they also know about like Leslie and Paula's connection, so that could still fall back on Leslie to some extent. Hopefully that's not the case. To be fair, they're going to I don't know if they're going to know that she's dead. They're not going to believe the story about Leslie being dead, because that's something only Paula knew, and she talked to Trevor / Darnell about that. So, but when they text the boss to set up the meet, the boss didn't show up. In fact, whoever it was had an eye on them, and they immediately recognized Darnell and Murphy. So that's why I'm like, whoever it is has to be a cop, because like, who else wouldn't, like, how would you know that them showing up is a thing with the cops? It's like, unless you're someone that is in the, well, because the only people who are supposed to know about Murphy is Sarah and Jean. They're the only ones that also know about Darnell as well. So I'm assuming it's got to be it has, whoever the boss of this organization is, it has to be a cop. Not unless they were like, the fact is, not unless it's based on how different Paula's texts were. Like, she was saying like, yo, money, do you have a place for me? And then also like, right, I got these two people you want to meet. It's probably not even a thing of, oh, these people are CIs. To be fair, one of them is blind. So like, that's why I'm like, I don't know what that's all about. But the fact is that home dude came to clean up Paula. Like, he has to know, like, not less, he might not have been the one that was watching it, because he would immediately recognize Darnell as, like, Darnell. So that's why I'm like, it has to be someone that, whoever it was, didn't take pictures of him, just kind of watched him from afar. So, like I said, I'm leaning towards a cop, but I don't know. Like I said, home dude that's new around, like, Sarah, Jean, and Josh, like, that new guy, like, it might be him. He's my best bet currently, my top suspect, but yeah, I'm not quite sure. So they kind of hit a bust on that side of things. They'll probably find out next episode about Paula, because home dude cleaned the scene. Granted, is he going to leave her at Leslie's place is going to be the big thing, because that could draw back to Leslie, but they might have, I don't know. He's probably getting rid of the bleached scene and stuff, but I don't know if he's going to leave Paula's body where it was, or he's going to dispose of. I don't know. We'll see where that goes, because like, either way, that could still fall back on Leslie potentially, because once again, it was also at Leslie's. She was also at Leslie's place, so and he knows about Leslie and Paula's connection. So we'll see. Other than that, well, I was also thinking like, is Keith in jail? I know he had to, like, step down from his job because of the cover-up, but actually, I think, didn't Gene arrest him last season? Call about to say, like, not unless it's Keith or some connections to Keith. It's like, right, you're no longer, well, as Murphy also said, like, right, you said he, and Darnell's like, fine, they, because it's like, yeah, don't get it twisted. I mean, we've seen two female crime bosses when Nia was a crime boss and Paula was just kind of middle management, but still. Other than that, Max shows up yet again, and then him and Murphy kind of get to it, and you're like, okay, Murphy's definitely going to end up telling him the truth. I think I even caught a snippet of the preview of the next episode. I think she is going to straight up tell him everything, which is like, oh boy, you've done so much to keep him out of this, and now you're getting him brought into the fold. As we saw that cold opening about the future, it's like, yeah, just everything's falling into place. But everything could be so deceptive, but as brokenhearted as she was, it has to be someone close enough to her for her to feel bad about it. Not lest we get a twist reveal where it's like she thought someone she cared about was dying, but in actuality, like whoever it is, Max, isn't dead. It's like, no, that's not me. I'm okay, I'm good. You know? Just like the whole Ben thing back in season 2. It's like, oh, you get the reveal like, oh, it's Ben that's dead on the floor and not someone else. Because at first you're like, oh, could it be Felix? But then Felix immediately, like they show you later on, being like right beside her helping clean up the Ben situation. Which, speaking of Ben, we've also got Chelsea and Josh working together. Obviously, Chelsea's kind of put together her own little file against Murphy because she wants Murphy to go away for a very long time. So the whole point is to try and get Murphy on moving Ben's body to get her arrested long enough so that she's locked up so they can continue to build a case against her when she gets eventually retried. Once again, eventually Josh is going to find out. He's going to have a rude awakening when the truth comes out about Murphy getting a mistrial because she's a informant. He's going to be super pissed towards Sarah and Jean when he finds out. So when that's all said and done, they go back to his place, which I'm like, okay, this is going into a complicated territory. I'm like, I mean, it's nothing official, so I guess it's okay, but I'm like, a witness and stuff like that, I'm like, wouldn't that technically, like, that's considered inappropriate in the eyes of, like, yeah, you dating a witness and something, is like, that's super, super inappropriate. Then I'm like, wouldn't you, but it's like, right, this isn't in any official capacity, this is kind of off books to some extent, so it doesn't, I mean, it's still probably like, you shouldn't be doing that, but it's not as, like, him and Chelsea being a thing, which I was almost like, there's a part of me that's like, well, at least, you know, I don't like Josh because he's trying to put Murphy away. Once again, Murphy's not a great person. I'm still ride or die Team Murphy all the way, like I've said time and time again. But yeah, I still want Josh to have some happy. It's just like he's kind of an asshole right now because he's trying to take Murphy down. Once again, he's an asshole because he's trying to do the right thing, but also it's like he doesn't have altruistic motives. He's vindictive. You know, and Chelsea's vindictive too. 100% has every right to be because her brother died. She blames them. It's like, Ben kind of brought it on himself, but it's like, right, if you hadn't had drugs around him in the first place, you know, it turns into that whole situation. So they tried to take audio from the back room and try to hear like what's happening up front. But the audio is not good enough, so we'll see if that ends up being a thing or not. But Chelsea and Josh really hit it off, and they hook up, and you're like, I could definitely, like I said, see that being a complicated thing, because eventually Chelsea could start seeing herself as just being used in this regard of like, oh, you just want to take down Murphy, that's what this is all about, like, you're just using me. So having felt used before when like Murphy would just make excuses and, oh, I'd give her drinks, and she just, oh yeah, don't have my wallet. It's like they were pseudo friends at one point in time, but obviously after the Ben thing that went super pear-shaped. So some interesting developments. I'm really, really curious to see where all of this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. This was episode 8, I believe, because I think this week's was Roswell's. I think it was episode 8 for Roswell, New Mexico as well. So it's like this had to be episode 8. So what? 5 episodes left, so it's going to be interesting to see where things take us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.